In honor of spooky season, we've compiled a list of top 10 horror movies. As an avid horror enthusiast, I'm eager to compare our top picks with yours. In this episode, we'll explore the vast spectrum of horror, from ghosts and ghouls to blood-curdling gore, creature features, and much more. Please note that we'll be evaluating these movies as individual works, without considering any associated prequels or sequels that expand their lore. Also, we've got some honorable mentions lined up for the end. If your favorites didn't make our main list, stick around and see if it gets a shout out. Settle in and join us as we unveil the top 10 horror films. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. And hitting the notification bell means you'll be alerted to all our future content. Alright, kicking things off at number 10, we've got the 1978 classic Halloween by John Carpenter. Carpenter's a genius when it comes to cranking up the suspense, from Michael eerily roaming around Haddonfield to him being a relentless killing machine in the hunt for his next victims. And as a cool tidbit, Carpenter actually based Haddonfield on his own childhood town, Bowling Green, Kentucky. While Jamie Lee Curtis absolutely kills in her role, the plot does leave us with a few questions. Michael Myers' whole motive is kind of up in the air, but some folks think that's part of what makes it scary. I mean, the guy's basically this unpredictable killing machine with absolutely zero f***s to give. And the mask just tops it all off. Masks always add an element of disassociation to any killer, on top of being a towering 6'8" murderous juggernaut wielding a 10-inch blade. So, yep, it's no surprise this iconic slasher movie bags our number 10 spot. Next up, hailing from the eerie Camp Crystal Lake, it's Friday the 13th by director Sean S. Cunningham. If you've seen this classic, you'd know the real killer isn't Jason Voorhees, but his dear mother, Pamela Voorhees. This film's famous for its creative kills. For its era, it was groundbreaking and has stayed a horror favorite. No series has defined the horror genre quite like Friday did. When folks think horror, chances are they're visualizing a big dude in a hockey mask going after some unlucky teens. The 80s saw a Friday the 13th film in 8 of its 10 years, right when horror was becoming big in pop culture. The cliches of the series became the cliches of horror. Its flaws are often used to criticize the entire genre. Even though the iconic Jason doesn't fully show up until the third movie, the original plays more like a mystery. It borrows some techniques from movies like Halloween and Black Christmas. Although it's foundational for horror, in terms of actual scares and storytelling, it's not the cream of the crop, landing it at our number 9. Let's call it a nod of respect. Sliding in at number 8 and ready to invade your dreams is Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street. For the longest time, Freddy was my top pick for the big three. That is Jason, Michael, and of course Freddy. His background story and motive for killing were always crystal clear to me. Plus, the way his powers were laid out made him a complex villain, hunting you when you're at your weakest. Did you know Wes Craven, also the brain behind Scream, got inspired to create the horror gem in the early 80s after reading about folks mysteriously dying in their sleep? Beyond Freddy's burned face and iconic striped sweater, his razor-filled glove stands out. Craven felt Freddy needed his own standout weapon, just like Leatherface has his chainsaw or Michael Myers with his big knife in Halloween. Freddy's thirst for revenge, empowered by dream demons coupled with a childhood filled with abuse, feels like a classic serial killer backstory. It's no wonder A Nightmare on Elm Street earns a solid spot at number 8 on our list. This next entry will make your head spin with our number 7 pick, William Friedkin's The Exorcist. This film hits close to home for me since it's set in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Being a D.C. native who went to school in Georgetown, I know those infamous steps quite well. And just to set the record straight, there aren't any houses at the top for someone to take a fatal fall from. But all that aside, The Exorcist is famed as one of the highest grossing horror movies, and its story is loosely rooted in real events. It's a bummer that not many exorcism-themed films have managed to capture its essence since. Back in '73 when it debuted, theaters were abuzz with tales of viewers throwing up, fainting, or just bailing midway because the visuals were so intense. Thanks to top-notch acting, direction, and practical effects, this film's portrayal of demonic possession is legendary, setting the bar as arguably the best in the business. At number 6, we have a relatively fresh face in the horror scene, The Witch. Set in 1630s New England, the film dives into the chaos and despair that engulfs a farming family when their infant boy Samuel mysteriously disappears. The blame falls on the oldest daughter, Thomasin, who was watching him when he vanished. What makes this tale both haunting and captivating is the suspense and uncertainty that persists until jaw-dropping revelations in the finale. This isn't your typical slasher flick from the 80s and 90s. It leans heavily into character development and pulls viewers in. While the deaths in the movie aren't groundbreaking, the focus is on painting a chilling world through Thomason's perspective. We've placed it at number 6 because it's a cerebral movie swirling around themes of Puritan beliefs, sin, and even possibly the 7 deadly sins. It touches on the dread of witchcraft and, on a smaller scale, mirrors the hysteria of witch hunts, showcasing how deception and untruths can upend piety and logic. Director Robert Eggers masterfully offers various angles for audiences to interpret the film. Our next pick has a special place in my heart, though I might be a tad biased. The 1988 horror hit Child's Play gave me the creeps as a kid. Even with its shortcomings, I'm a big fan of the franchise. Blame it on nostalgia, but it's special to me, especially since I had a doll growing up that was a Chucky knockoff. Not the best gift choice if you ask me. The concept behind Child's Play was quite inventive for its time, tapping into the universal creepiness of dolls. I mean, if using a doll with the soul of the Lakeshore Strangler Charles Lee Ray, that's the greatest use of evil hiding in plain sight. While many might argue that taking down a murderous doll wouldn't be too hard, and there are a few plot holes to navigate throughout the series, Child's Play has cemented its status as a cult favorite, rightfully earning a spot on many top horror lists, or at least getting a nod in the honorable mentions. Pivoting into psychological horror, our number 4 spot is snatched up by the 2017 sensation Get Out. Directed, co-produced, and written by Jordan Peele, in his directorial debut, the film focuses on Chris, his girlfriend Rose, and his tense first encounter with her family. Peele masterfully weaves in subtle cues throughout the movie that might take a couple viewings to fully grasp. At the outset, Chris interprets the family's over-the-top hospitality as awkward efforts to navigate their daughter's interracial relationship. But as events unfold, Chris stumbles upon dark revelations that are far beyond what he could have ever anticipated. This flick is far from ordinary, somewhat reminiscent of Psycho with its twists and deceptive appearances. Get Out secures its number 4 position partly due to its impeccable timing, arriving when audiences were hungry for fresh horror tales. Peele's genius lies in handling multiple layered themes in a genre not often experimented with, producing a thought-provoking movie without the usual blood, beast, and boogeymen. Alright folks, this next one is legendary. Adapted from Stephen King's 1977 novel and crafted masterfully by director Stanley Kubrick, we're diving into the iconic 1980 horror masterpiece, The Shining. Featuring the stellar talents of Jack Nicholson, Danny Lloyd, and Shelley Duvall, the plot circles around Jack Torrance, played by Nicholson, a writer, former alcoholic, and now winter caretaker of the eerie Overlook Hotel. Lloyd shines as Danny, Jack's son, who possesses psychic gifts known as The Shining. Danny's ghostly friend Tony alludes to the reality of the hotel's past. And as a snowstorm traps the family, Jack's grip on reality slips, putting his wife Wendy, played by Duvall, and Danny in grave peril. Despite an initial lukewarm reception, partly due to its deliberate pacing, The Shining has carved its niche as a monumental horror staple. Kubrick brilliantly unravels a haunting tale of descent into madness and the terrifying consequences that follow. Grabbing our number 2 spot is the brilliant Sixth Sense by M. Night Shyamalan. This film is a powerhouse with a brilliant blend of pacing, performance, direction, and genuine horror that doesn't rely on gore. With a stellar cast featuring Bruce Willis, Haley Joel Osment, and Toni Collette, Sixth Sense isn't just a horror hallmark, it's one of the standout movies of the 90s. It raked in 6 Academy Award nominations, spotlighting not just the incredible storytelling, but the talents of its cast and Shyamalan's prowess as both the director and writer. Famous for its jaw-dropping twist, the movie sets the bar for suspense films. It skillfully draws you into its world, keeping you on edge while also exploring deep relationship dynamics. Some might say it's slow or lacks the standard jump scares, but to those critics, we suggest finding another movie to critique. Snagging our top spot at number 1 is Ari Aster's spine-chilling Hereditary. While many praise this film as a masterful depiction of family curses and predetermined fates, there are those who think it missed the mark. But remember, even legendary films like Psycho, crafted by the genius Alfred Hitchcock, had its critics. So Hereditary definitely deserves its moment in the spotlight. With a stellar cast including Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, Millie Shapiro, Ann Dowd, and Gabriel Byrne, this story delves into a family unraveling after the mysterious death of their reclusive grandmother. Central to the narrative is the heart-wrenching experience of collective grief and the subsequent emotional spiral, a theme that may resonate differently with individuals based on personal experience. These standout performances and captivating direction pull you in, even if there are a few narrative gaps. And as the climax unfolds, it's evident that the family will never be the same, and perhaps that's the real horror. Now for a look at some of our honorable mentions, which could in fact be another list of top 10 all on its own. Well, we've looked at horror in its finest form, but in this list, we've only taken into consideration the direction and themes of the films and believe this to be the cream of the crop. Now, if you object, feel free to leave your objections in the comment sections below. If you agree with our list, we'd like to hear from you too. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Critically Speaking. We'll see you in the next one. That's it for today's episode of Critically Speaking. Thanks for joining us as we explore the latest movies, games, and hot topics. Stay up to date with our latest content by hitting that notification bell. And if you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And as always, stay critical.